With this section about Warhammer getting separated from the main one, it's gone through some significant restructuring. Oh yeah, you might want to watch that first one before this one, for hopefully obvious reasons. Warhammer has a lot of variety. Like, way more than any other game in the franchise by quite some margin. With every other title being at least a little based in history, you don't really see faction diversity quite to this level in any of the other games.
I want to see blood! I want to bathe in their blood! I want to bathe in their blood for a week! Now! Kill them all!
You'll always be playing as humans. There's no option to go, alright, fuck it, I want to play as a herd of literal rats right now. Well, unless you play as the French. It looks great. The presentation is truly incredible. From the map's fidelity to the voice acting to the effects. Battles are fun and single entity units and magic are really cool new additions that flow really well into gameplay. It controls pretty effortlessly too, and units actually respond to giving commands instead of the lax response times of the old days. Like, dudes, I think you missed your charge. In general, I would say battles feel pretty great. There's so much variety with the vast factions. There's so much variety with the vast faction selection. And everyone is bound to find something that they like, probably. Total War's balance has been shifting to range throughout the whole of its lifespan, and it's sort of reached a silly critical mass. But before we can talk about that, we have to talk about how you're incentivized to make doom stacks, and to get to that we have to talk about how they've changed the economy, and to get there we have to talk about how they've changed cities, and to get there we have to talk about how they've restructured armies and generals, and to get to that, it's a whole thing. And before I can even begin there, I have to talk about the word that will send all the people that play this game cowering and running for cover. Performance. With no exaggeration or hyperbole intended, this might be one of the worst performing games I ever played in my entire life. And I played Apex for 2 full years. I think it comes down to 6 words. Warhammer does not respect your time. Playing Warhammer is so riddled with useless downtime that I can only help but go into autopilot when playing it, and at that point, you're not really enjoying the game. Like, here, let me give you the perfect example. After spending a few minutes deciding which skills to choose in this overly massive skill tree, I press end turn. After 30 seconds of twiddling my thumbs, I get interrupted. 15 seconds later, it happens again. Alright, a full minute has passed now, and... oh, come on. Alright, you gotta be kidding me at this point. There is so much unbelievable turn bloat. Picking perks takes too long, end turn takes forever, the loading screen, oh my god, the loading screens. It takes a full minute to load into a campaign. Look, this probably doesn't sound that bad, but in a full 2-hour session, I think I'm probably playing Total War for maybe 30 to 45 of those minutes. I genuinely can't bring myself to play Warhammer lately because I know the majority of my playtime will be spent staring at loading screens. And before you complain, this is on an SSD! I can't imagine how much more horrible it would be on a hard drive. This right here, along with the aforementioned changes to generals and armies, is the main reason I really don't enjoy Warhammer. Getting trapped in constant molasses while trying to play a, admittedly subjectively, inferior version of a game that I like hasn't really been a compelling prospect as of recent. But enough beating around the bush, let's talk about armies. Older Total War games, as in every single one prior to Warhammer, let you move every single unit individually on the campaign map. Warhammer 1 and 2, however, have dumped this in favor of only allowing units and armies to be recruited through lords. I'm gonna be honest, they fucked up on this one. There's a lot of reasons. Let's begin. It streamlines the process of managing your armies way too much. Increase the amount of armies you have can turn your coffers from positive to Venezuela instantaneously because of how supply lines work. There is no more ferrying soldiers around your empire to strategically reinforce exhausted generals who desperately need more men. Recruiting a full stack of Rome's finest sent off to some weary bastard whose men are only left fighting with sticks and stones. You can't do that anymore. There'd be no point either, because replenishment means that everyone gets all their men back after a couple of turns anyway. This therefore incentivizes players to sort of throw diversified army comps out the window and just recruit 19 of whatever the faction's best unit is. One of the more memorable moments of older Total War games for me was seeing a massive unexpected invasion force approach the soft underbelly of my empire, and then just barely managing to rout it after assembling all the nearby garrisons and troops in transit. This is literally impossible now. Oh, but the new garrison system is what really gets me. I don't think they could have done it worse. Garrisons might as well not exist, because they're never strong enough to ward off a swift breeze, and anyone who does manage to take damage to them will instantly heal all their wounds in the town over the end turn. Any DLC units like rattling guns or Giselles could help if they got added to garrisons, but CA have never and will never add DLC units to garrisons. You can't have both incredibly weak garrisons and incredibly limited pool of armies. As it stands, you're bound to overextend and to have someone start romping through settlements while you can barely respond. Fighting a generalist battle in every single game mentioned thus far has you roll a check for a new general. Here's one from my time in Rome. This man would later go on to sack Rome itself, and then eventually become leader of the entire British Romana Empire. I bring this up because, obviously, it was very memorable. Gutting this feature not only robs players of those memorable moments, it also hurts the... Roman Medieval 2 had very dynamic generals. Put a general in a place where there's a crappy farming output, and they might despise farmers. There's a lot of examples of this, and I'll probably throw some up on screen right now, but there are way too many for me to, just think of at the top of my head. After Medieval 2, this was basically never seen again, at least not to the same level of depth. In Warhammer, you get one trait. You will build every single lord in the exact same way. They can pick up more unique traits through certain criteria, but it feels a lot more artificial and a whole lot less dynamic and interesting. Oh, and there are no more negative traits as far as I'm aware. General speeches have also been entirely gutted, bar a couple in quest battles. I don't think this is a huge deal, as some characters' speeches would be interesting, but it's still something to note. Armies are really fast to train in Warhammer. You press this button and you smack this a whole lot, and you get a full stack in 3, maybe 4 turns if you're buying a lot of expensive units. This is a whole lot easier than the old way, sure, but it's a lot more boring and way less interesting. There is no more need to have a solid core of military settlements in your empire anymore, because they can just be recruited anywhere anyway. And additionally, they're going to heal wherever you send them. It feels a lot more like Warhammer is about painting the map than previous titles. I sincerely do not give a shit about any of my territory, and it's largely useless after being conquered. Settlements are way less interesting here as well. In Rome, every single settlement had at least the prospect to be useful. You could use even the most remote shithole if you put enough time into it. Here, in Warhammer, some settlements are just arbitrarily worse than others because CA said so. The amount that settlement management has been toned down following Medieval 2 is baffling. The Mortal Empire's victory conditions also reinforce that settlements mean practically nothing. Even the short victories request that you go conquer half the world. Namely, totally arbitrary, lore-significant locations, all the same for every faction. Apart from a handful of more recent factions, there are no unique victory conditions for the vast majority of characters. But, Warhammer 2 is going out into the bin in about 3 weeks at the time of writing, right? Surely Warhammer 3 will fix all my problems, right? What's the point in even bringing it up right now? What's the point in complaining? I sincerely doubt Warhammer 3 will fix any of these problems. The world is only going to get bigger, and pre-release streams so that the loading times are almost identical. In fact, they might even get worse because the world's growing an extra continent. The way lords and armies are handled are too embedded into the game to be changed now, and come on, we already have footage, we know the system doesn't change. A lord trait overhaul isn't going to be happening either, especially with how legendary lords are implemented. The conclusion is that, most likely, load times are almost certainly going to increase, and the end-of-turn bloat will get even longer. I suspect Game 3 will accentuate all of my problems, not fix any of them. Additionally, settlement management is unchanged and still looks just as boring as ever. The AI has always been prone to mental breakdowns in every single game in the franchise. This is why the AI has to use tremendous amounts of literal cheats to compete with any player. This is not going to change either, and that's fine, I guess? But nothing except the homebrew lord really feels like an advancement or something that's worthy of a new title. Really, to me, Warhammer 3 feels like a massive patch with a bunch of good features that, apart from the new regions, really feel like they all should have been in Warhammer 1. Seriously, region trading is now worth a whole new title? Or sieges that resemble any other game in the franchise? To comment on balance would be sort of pointless because not only is the game going to get a massive balance patch when Warhammer 3 comes out, it could practically change at any time anyway. It's just that I highly doubt they're going to fix the range meta with what's effectively a single, albeit major, patch. Maybe, just maybe, there's no point in me complaining about any of this. Maybe Warhammer 3 will fix everything. It's not going to, but I like to believe. A game with the performance, population system, and army management of Rome Remastered, combined with the variety and presentation of Warhammer, would be amazing. Hell, set it in medieval Europe, you can get the Crusades mechanic back, and Medieval 3 could be the best in the franchise easily. While I'm dreaming, I would love it if money rained from the sky, and also if Norska was playable. Big thanks to all the people that give me money.